Hello, everybody. My name is Sarah Buffy, and I'm one of our hosts for our Biographical Timeline Learning Cohort that is supported by Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities and OMAS. Have been supporting our work over the past 5 years. We've been able to create a learning journey with about 50 human service professionals around the state to understand how the biographical timeline as a practice, as a process, can help us deeper understand people before we start to design services and supports. So I've invited a few folks here today to talk with us about your experience as not just participants in the cohort, but you've all participated as fellows, which means you've been in a leadership position where you're sharing and coaching people on how the biographical timeline process works and how it can support the work that you do with folks. So less of jibber jabber from me. Would love to hear from you guys. Sarah, Andy, and Amy Jo, you're all here to speak to a couple questions that I've laid out. How has this cohort been different than other learning journeys that you've been on? How have you used your new knowledge in the role that you have? And then how has the cohort as a whole impacted your attitude, your skills, your knowledge, and your behavior towards the people that you support and work with? And I'll just invite any one of you to bring in your voice and speak to whatever question pulls at your heart.
The way this cohort is different from other learning journeys, to me, the thing that pops out is the TIBT journey it's about the journey, right? Not so much the destination. So when I think about other training or learning journeys that I've been on, it's more about the destination and what is the end result that you're getting to. And there are plenty of takeaways with the trauma-informed biographical timelines, but it's so much from the very first time you get on with your cohort members from the very last time, you really become friends and almost like family. And it's really about the journey more so than the destination was the first thing I thought of.
I love that, Andy. We talk a lot about that, even just the timeline itself. It's about the process, not about the product. So just another way to lift up what you shared. It's the same as a cohort experience. It really is about walking alongside one another and journeying together. Then, hey, I got this certificate, or I ended in this way. So I appreciate you naming that.
Hi, I feel like the trauma-informed biographical timeline cohort experience is different than other learning journeys because it really does help tools for yourself and to be able to have those in your pocket to help other people, not even just in the timeline process, but when people are in need in that moment. We have those tools to help people be successful. And the affiliation part that we get from the team environment and the continuous learning and the updates that we get really just solidifies that we have the tools to really do be successful and show up successfully for other people.
The cohort has impacted my attitude, skills, knowledge, and behavior in many, many ways. I am able to approach all people with curiosity, compassion, and love. I believe that healing from trauma is possible, and I believe it is possible for all people. One way I'm using the knowledge that I gained from being in the community of practice for the trauma-informed biographical timeline is to help myself and others in my personal and professional life. I have shifted my entire mindset to one of healing and have learned deeper ways to pay attention to people on purpose. Understanding someone's trauma journey has really helped me build empathy and support for the healing journey. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
I think for me, just the way that it's set up is it's such a great environment to be able to not have to know everything, right? Like just a great environment to just really get in touch with what is going on in your body, right? So we're encouraged to really center, to look inside ourselves and see how we're reacting to things. And so it's just a really open and honest environment, right? To say like, I'm not getting this, I'm not understanding, and to have so many people on so many different timeframes, right? And so many different timeframes of their journey in trauma-informed care, trauma-responsive care, doing the timelines, and just really learn from that expertise. And I think there's so many things that I learn, not just from people, you know, like Sarah or LaShonda, or Dr. Kennedy, but like there's all these great things that I learned from the people who are just starting this journey. And some of the questions, some of the observations that they make aren't things that I've made before. So I love the way that we do things where, you know, it's not just listening and absorbing and reading, it's actively doing the process and going through that. And I think for me, just being able to try it, to see what feels right for me, it is really great. And to be able to see Andy facilitate a timeline and see all these amazing things that I wouldn't have thought of, and just be able to learn from each other. I think that the way that it's structured really lends itself to continually perfecting that skill and continuing to learn and to be better and do better yourself.
Awesome. I'm also hearing something I've heard from our colleague, Susan Bloom, who has shared there's this moment as you're facilitating timelines. So this is the cohort is about building up those facilitation skills. We of course have trauma-informed care woven in as what builds our awareness towards facilitating those timelines, but there's a practitioner skill of that she calls getting to that wow moment. Right. We have so many people who are wrapped around folks to provide care, to provide support. And when things aren't going smoothly, or when we're in continual challenging experiences or circumstances, it can be so stressful and we can get burnout and we can limit our capacity to see the full picture. We start to get really certain. They're doing this, they're doing that, they need to do this. Right? We get really kind of stuck in our offerings because we're stressed and we're experiencing a stress of another. When we can take that time out and unfold someone's history and get to the why of things versus the what, there's this wow moment that can happen that is signaling, oh my gosh, this is what's going on, or now I have greater empathy. I'm curious from you guys, how has the cohort helped you develop that wow factor? And I don't mean entertainment, but I mean that capacity to get your group, to get a team from a space of burnout or stuckness into the, oh my gosh, there's more here to this story, and have people lean in a little bit more. How has your experience as facilitators been supported through that cohort environment?
It's fun for me to see the light bulbs come on as I'm facilitating, not just in the cohort, but as I facilitate timelines around Northwest Ohio. I remember texting my supervisor before one of the timelines. She was aware that I was going to another county to help with the timeline, and before we had even started the timeline, I'm just setting the paper up on the wall and people are gathering in the room, and I think I heard the word non-compliant at least 3 times, and just the language that they were using. And I remember texting my supervisor, and I just said, be thinking of me, pray for me today for the next 3 hours, because it's going to be an uphill climb. But I tell you, by the time we were done, the empathy was through the roof. The words were changing through reframing and getting people to recognize that these are things that the person did to stay alive and keep themselves safe. The light bulbs did start to come on, and they started to realize what this person had gone through and how that was impacting them. So it's in a course of 3 hours, you just see somebody's whole mind shift change, and it is a wow moment like you described.
Mm-hmm. Andy, I love that. And I'm going to use that as a tee off to bring Sarah in. When we reach that state of empathy, when we reach that deeper state of awareness and ability to understand someone in the context of their life experiences, what does that do to our what? How do we go from the wow to the what? And in your experience, Sarah, as a boss, as a CEO, as a direct support, as a mom, how has that wow impacted your what?
I mean, I think the biggest part for me, it's so interesting to me that we're a system, right? That it just relies on paperwork so much, and how it takes this piece of paper and this process and this journey to get from a statistic to a case study to a client to a real human person, right? And so we get so stuck in that and that wow factor that shifts. Now we're looking at this person not as a non-compliant person or a label or a statistic. We're looking at them as a human being who has fought to survive and who has done their very, very best to survive. And so all the things that we held against them almost, right? Like, oh, they're this, they're manipulative, they're, you name it, that's what they are, right? To, oh my God, they're survivors, they're fighters. These are humans that have been through more than anyone should ever have to be through. And so that gives, I think, that shift then to that, well, what now? Well, like, what have we been doing, right? Like, why have we been doing it this way for so long? And so that gives us that ability to shift to, okay, what now? What's next? Like, we don't have to stop here. And I think that's just this really great thing, because you see this linear line and you see all these instances and then you see a stop, right? But that's not the stop, right? That's the beginning. So then we shift to the, wow, all this happened. Wow, this is a real human being. Oh my gosh, to, okay, what's next? What do we need to change? What do we need to look at differently in order to see success, to see relationships, to see healing? And what are those next steps? So I love the process. I'm a history nerd. I love history, but I love, not staying there and using that and saying, okay, what are these next steps? And that just gives you such a great place to start off from. No one wants to be judged by their worst day. And that's what we're really good at doing in the system, is judging a person by their very worst day. And if I were judged like that, I would have no friends or job or life. So I think that's the most beautiful part is that what's next? Let's do this. Let's go. I'm ready. It recharges people and it gives them a fresh perspective of what the next step is and what's coming on in the future.
I'm going to break my neck from nodding so much in agreement. I don't know if anyone can see, but yes, absolutely, Sarah. And what I think both you and Andy are speaking to is we're taking people on a journey through the process, but we can't facilitate that journey if we haven't journeyed ourselves. So words of wisdom to folks, if they're going to apply to the cohort, if they're going to come on our learning journey with us, what might you offer as a way to prepare for the inner journey that's going to happen in the cohort experience, not just that outer work?
I thought about this this week at the Wood County Fair of all places. I saw a hypnotist and comedy show at the Wood County Fair. I don't know if you've ever seen a hypnotist or been hypnotized. Okay. If you've never seen a hypnotist, the first thing the person will say, the speaker, the hypnotist says is, if you have it in your mind that you cannot be hypnotized, you are right. So you don't come up on stage and be a smart aleck. And because if you refuse to be hypnotized, in other words, if you refuse to listen and allow yourself to get to this deep state of relaxation, don't do it, because it won't work on you, right? And so if you don't show up with an open mind and an open heart to the training, you probably won't get out of it what you're looking to get out of it. If you show up with an old school mindset, closed mind, closed heart, then I would recommend that you save the spot for somebody else, because if you show up with an open mind and an open heart, I think you're going to be surprised. It's going to feel like you're in your stretch zone at times. But I think if you allow yourself to go with it, you're going to personally and professionally come out better on the other side for it.
I love that. And I love that you named the stretch zone, right? We talk about that sometimes, that the safe zone is here. The stretch zone, right? It can feel like danger, right? But there's a difference between where we're not in safety and where we're just in that challenge by choice experience. So that's a great visual to kind of name what people are in for in the cohort. It's a bit of a stretch space. Yeah. What about you, Sarah?
I think for the biggest thing for me, and I was really intrigued by Andy's answer. So I don't know if I'm remembering the question right, but like how to show up.
Yeah.
I mean, I think just be prepared. I have always known that people's stories like really touch me, right? And I think that the hardest thing for me is to make space for that empathy and that vulnerability in front of other people. And when you're doing this, when you're hearing some of these stories, what has happened to people, and just kind of like the reason behind it, like your mind automatically goes to so many different people or interactions that you've had in life, and you have like this fresh perspective. But I think it's totally okay to just be vulnerable in that moment. Like it's a safe space where you can do that, and to really be able to just kind of look inward and say, okay, like what is this doing to me? What is this triggering for me? What is this bringing up inside me? And to be able to process that, I think that's something that's very important. And I like to think like I'm this big, strong person and I've got it all, but to have that space to be vulnerable and to take the time to examine what's happening in you as you're going through this process, I think is, something to be prepared for and to not be ashamed of. Like I no longer, and I think this is directly related to being part of the cohort and learning more about the timeline. Like I no longer apologize for crying. I always was the person, I'm sorry. And then now I'm like, hey, this is how I'm showing up. This is how I'm feeling. And I feel safe with you to be vulnerable and authentic. So I think that that's something, be prepared for some emotion, lives are hard. It's amazing what people survive, and just, the feelings that come up can be difficult. But it also, as you move forward, like it's not a skill you learn and it just applies to the people we support, right? It applies to every single person you meet, and it really changes the way you interact with everyone, the words you choose to use, how you just show up. And I think that that's like something that for me has been just life-changing and really allowed me to be more my authentic self, and to just really be more supportive and loving to people in general, just people in general, and not just for the people we support. So
yes, human beings. I love it. We emphasize that a lot in the cohort. And what I hear you both speaking to is you're reflecting the culture of resonance that we try to create, right? Resonance, even in the digital space, right? We have content sessions online where we're learning and we're communicating, we're talking with one another. But we do that through videos through conversation, through small groups, right? Where we're able to resonate with the information, not just landing here, but also how it lands in our bodies. And then you two are great examples of how you've created that culture of resonance in the practice groups, where you're able to be with people, be with the paper, communicate, share, and feel one another in that space. And that's another part of the cohort that we try to emphasize, is that bringing your full self to the room, resonating and paying attention to what's happening inside and outside is part of the muscle that we really try to build and to stretch sometimes, but definitely to grow. So any final words or offerings or invitations you want to add to future cohort members out there?
I just encourage people that, again, if you want to approach this with curiosity and an open mind and an open heart, I would encourage you to do it, because it can feel intimidating, like you have to have all the answers. But Sarah, you and your team have provided so many awesome resources and like very easy to access. Oh, this person, experienced domestic violence in the womb. I know that means something, but I don't remember exactly. Here's the link of the website where you can go and you can show when a person experiences this at a young age, here's how that might show up when the person is an adult. And you don't have to have it memorized. You can send people things ahead of time and use those resources that you hand out. So it may seem scary, but I would encourage you to take that leap.
Beautiful. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, I think Andy's right. If you can come in and you're even if you're just like semi-intrigued. You don't have to be like sold out from the beginning. We'll get you there. It's fine. But to just know, like, this is something, I mean, I can't say it enough. Like, this is something that has changed my life for the better. It's changed my parenting. It's changed the way I run my agency. It's changed the way I interact with everyone. And so just come in and leave room for growth and just prepare to be changed. And it's worth it. It's definitely a journey that is worth it and will just totally shake your world a little bit. But I think for the better. So.
Lovely.
So the way that this was different, I've been to a lot of trauma trainings or like other trainings or cohorts or parts of groups that meet regularly. And I think it's weird, but even though it was all through Zoom, you build a form of like camaraderie in a way, even not just in your own like section. Like I really like Pam and she wasn't even in my group, but like every time she talks, I was like, I'm gonna listen to her right now. And I think it just really gets you involved because you just stay on those topics and you explore different ways and nobody's wrong. Nobody, you know, everybody has value to add or experiences to add. For me, I've been using it with some of my folks. I've always talked about trauma with our individuals. I'm a residential director with individuals who have disabilities. So I always talk about trauma and when we set our goals and what that looks like and how to support the person in whatever they're going through to not really heal them, but to help them feel safe, because I think safety equals just a change in behavior and the things that they say and the things that they do, and it empowers them. So we're continuing that. We're looking at doing a timeline for one of our individuals that we serve that I've known for a really long time. I've also actually contracted with our local wraparound facility agency here. I'm currently working on a timeline for a young lady and doing some trauma trainings with the family. I think in terms of how it impacted my attitude, skills, and knowledge, I think the more that you talk about something, the more it's in the forefront of your mind. It's very easy when you go to a training on trauma to then for that day think about trauma and then forget it because you're just frustrated or you're just not thinking straight or you're task oriented at that time instead of thinking maybe there's what's the why behind this, or why are we seeing this? How do we support this person and make them feel better? And it helps me also when we're in that transition period. Like I always tell people, respect the transition and respect the diagnosis. I think it helps me recognize it more, especially when I'm getting frustrated with something, be like, we are in this transition period. We got to go for another 15 to 20 days and see if anything kind of flips, you know.
Andrea, you just shared a couple of things that I just want to reflect back to you, and I hope Pam was listening too. That when she said when you spoke, I listened, and so I just want to name that I'm glad that you experienced camaraderie and connection even over the virtual format, and that the topics being discussed. I would even say ad nauseum sometimes. You know, like as a trainer, it can feel like we're beating a horse there. But what you've reminded me of is that repetition is important. Keeping this same community and being with people on a learning journey over time is important, and that you can still find wisdom even though we're on these screens. You can still find wisdom from one another, and sometimes you start tuning in. Hey, I really want to lean in when that person's chiming in because they're going to have something valuable for me, and that's great. You're able to see that even outside of your own regional practice group.
Thanks, Andrea, for warming up the seat for me. So yeah, I would tell you things that are different from what Andrea said. There is a ton of resources that this offers you. And I think that there's a nice balance between absorbing the resources and then practicing with the resources, which is different than a lot of other opportunities that I've had. So I love that. And like Andrea was talking about the camaraderie, you're all learning together. And I think when we are in those spaces together, you really feel like nobody's ahead of one another. We're all kind of moving as one together through this, which was really cool. One of the resources that we were given was to learn about, or it was an article by Dr. Sean Ginwright, and it led me to explore more that he talked about. And one of the things he mentions is that we are not necessarily finding a trauma lens, but a mirror. And I thought we spent a lot of time on a more introspective look. In order to do this work, we had to really spend time on ourselves, which can be very uncomfortable. But when you get to the other side, it's really worth it. And I don't think I've ever gotten that at any other learning experience, I think, before. So that was really fun. Using the knowledge, let's see here. I think one of the big things that I took away from this, and that I learned, and this kind of goes into that next question, is I tend to want to fix things or problem solve. And you really have to push pause on that and take a moment to just create the space for other people. And so that's been one of the things that I think I've really been intentional about the most, is holding a safe space for people, paying attention to myself while also paying attention to those around me, and not just trying to figure out how to fix all the things that are going on in the space, and with the people around us. So those are things that I've taken with me. I haven't done any trauma timelines. I'm willing and able to help in any way, but I've been able to use these skills in other ways too. So that's been really helpful.
Yeah, I love that. I think, we all come to this for a shared desire to learn about trauma timelines and kind of be in that educational field. But most of us walk out with a shift in our personal lives, with our family members, right, with our colleagues, not just the focus people that we're asked to support. So I'm glad to hear that from both of you, that you had that experience, and you both shared something I thought was important. No one's wrong. No one's ahead of anyone else. We're literally in that journey together. And I think that's an important reflection for folks who maybe feel like they have to be ahead of the game, or have a lot of trauma knowledge before they come in. That's really helpful, right? As we're growing that facilitator muscle, we're always learning new information and finding out how can we get all the facts and figures correct. But it's really the willingness to be humble, to walk alongside one another, and to be in that curious beginner's mind is, I think, what makes this a unique journey. So glad to hear that reflected.
Just to add too, I know that starting out and kind of thinking about this, there's a lot of weight to it. It feels like a lot of responsibility. And I just remember there being people, and myself included, feeling the stress of, oh my gosh, how is this all going to pull together? How am I going to be able to do this? And I just think that it's kind of like, I don't know if you've gone to college, you've been in these places where you just have this huge amount of resources. That I know this isn't about compliments, but there's a powerhouse team that you have access to, that's just so well curated, that I think that it doesn't end there too. You can reach out to this team. So you're creating these resources that you can take with you and use. So you don't have to have all the answers and know how to do it all right out the gate. So I thought that was really cool too.
Yeah, that's super freeing. And there's a directory, so we can look for each other, right? We can find one another. I think the goal of the state is to create enough facilitators that we don't have to be spending extra funding on outside consultants, but we start to have local folks who are equipped with that knowledge and that awareness and that skill set. So being included in the directory after the timeline cohort, you can either sign up to facilitate for folks, to co-facilitate, you can be a note taker, or you can just be a brainstorm partner. So I think that's another unique thing. You don't have to graduate, and then you're not supposed to have an exact skill set that, now you're held to a certain standard, but we try to emphasize that continuous learning journey. And like you just said, Pam, how can we keep pouring into each other and be a resource for one another as we do this work? Great. Last words or final comments, or if you were to give a message to someone's out there, they're watching this video, they're like, man, I don't know if I should do this or not. What would push someone across the nudge them a little bit to hit apply and hit send? What would be your invitation to a newbie who might join us? Andrea, I'll invite you to go first.
I mean, do it. What's one more tool in your toolbox of something that could potentially help somebody and improve somebody's life? And I think it does something selfishly for yourself as well. I talk a lot about trauma, or I go to a lot of stuff about trauma because I think it's helped me a lot kind of break through my own things and heal from things, and just, because I mean, I think most people go into careers, and most of the time if someone goes into social work, right, they say they got their own issues they got to deal with. So like, if you want to learn things for yourself too, I mean, you can't go wrong with learning more information on it. So
yes, we will hold you on your healing journey as well. I love that. Pam, for someone who's on the fence, or maybe even from a different angle, if from someone, maybe you're supporting someone, you're mentoring someone, you think, hey, this would be a good tool for their toolbox. What would be your suggestion for someone to lean in?
Just do it. I don't know. There's not a single thing that I could think of that would make you not want to do it. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like all the excuses. I will tell you, for me, I didn't necessarily think it was for me because I don't support people directly anymore. I don't have a caseload of people that I'm always working with. I spend a lot of time supporting those who are supporting those people. So just to know it from another way of looking at how to use all of it is that I'm empowering those other people who are the professionals working with people to become citizens, really. And that's what it's all about. They just have other things that are getting in the way.
Yes, I'm going to quote both of you. Your answer was do it. Okay, so that's what we're leaning into. That is the invitation. And I love that you named that, Pam. For me, it's not just I'm a facilitator or I have people I support directly. And sometimes your role is even more helpful because you have a little bit of space from what might be going on, right? So we like to bring anyone into this conversation because we all work on teams. We all hear a disgruntled colleague maybe come and want to process something. And if we can help them process from that rooted and responsive place versus meeting them and all the symptoms of the stress, we're now helping move that person's healing journey forward just by pouring into a colleague or a family member who's having a hard time. So even outside of the official timeline process, we're hopeful that the learning extends beyond that. And I'm glad to hear you both think that as well. I didn't pay you guys. You just tell everybody I didn't pay you to say those things.
They did not pay us.
Yeah, there we go.
No, I wasn't paid. You can pay me if you ever need to. So
I love it. I love it. I'm excited for new folks where we're heading into year 5 and look forward to being on the learning journey with everyone. And we'll see you. Applications are out, and we'll see y'all hopefully soon in our next cohort.